Would you like to know the power of paradox to master change and accept your anxiety? Well, that's what this video is all about. Hello, my name is Jesse. Welcome to my channel, Open Source Owners, where we talk about what if humans had an owner's manual. The paradox we're talking about here when we're working with anxiety is how to change the anxiety, because nobody wants to live in the feeling of anxiety forever, but also, and paradoxically, accept anxiety at the same time. That sort of balance between those two sort of dualities is how we actually get to mastering our anxiety and eventually ending our experiences with anxiety. That is the goal of my channel. That is the goal of a lot of work of therapy, is to just free ourselves from anxiety and depression. It is possible. Keep an eye on this channel to find out how. This duality allows for eventual mastery of anxiety. And what we're talking about here is the use of acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT therapy, which is a wonderful therapy framework that really teaches us how to engage in the paradox of both accepting and wanting to change things. It's sort of like dialectical behavioral therapy, and the term dialectic is about sort of having these two opposing things and trying to work towards synthesis of those things. It's similar in that way. We must learn to accept the experiences that we're having, and we'll talk more about that throughout this video. But also, nobody wants to live in high anxiety or panic attacks, so we also need to be able to change that. Now, ACT was developed in the 1980s by Stephen Hayes. He's a therapist, and he was particularly trying to solve and end his panic attacks. And what he had realized and noticed was that sort of denying his panic or trying to get away from it or change it actually made things worse, and eventually developed the strategy, largely influenced by mindfulness sort of techniques, which is largely coming from Buddhism, so very Eastern philosophy meets Western philosophy. But eventually you learn, using that type of strategy and studying ACT, that, resisting things actually just makes it worse. So there has to be sort of step one is to learn to accept. Step two is change. We cannot shame, resist, shut down, or deny our emotions as a baseline orientation to self. Well, why not, you ask? Emotions are critical messages that need to be heard. The way I think of emotions is energetic signals and pattern recognitions that we must learn from and read as if we were reading a book or signs on the road. It's like getting a call from someone trying to tell you something important, and then ignoring it or resisting it or shutting it down is you basically not answering the phone. Well, but the phone call was important. It was there for you to hear. It was a message for your ear. It's a message from your body's innate wisdom to aid your body's and your mind's innate wisdom. So we cannot, I know of no therapy that advises to shut down, ignore, or resist emotions. That's never going to be the way forward. We have to learn to sort of like embrace them to understand them. If you think about children and they're having an emotional meltdown, for instance, you're not going to tell the child, just stuff it away, kid, or like try not to think about it, or like pretend that emotion doesn't exist. I hope you don't do that. If you do, try this instead. Say, hey, what's going on? How can I help you? How are you feeling? And when they're really young, you're trying to actually help give them names to what they're experiencing, right? Like, oh, it's okay. You're just feeling afraid, or you're just feeling stressed out or overwhelmed. You're just feeling hungry or tired, right? We try to help frame things so that those emotional signals that triggered the meltdown, or in your case, it might be triggering panic or anxiety, those emotional signals are there to sort of give you a preliminary warning or an update as to what may be causing the eventual anxiety that you experience or panic attack that you're experiencing. So we must accept our emotions wherever they are rather than demanding that they change. Remember, we must go with the flow, right? Live in the moment and recognize that all things must pass. These are just basic colloquial wisdom sayings that just exist in our culture, but there's a deep truth to these. And again, I think that these in large part are influenced by the Buddhist and the Eastern philosophies on life, like Taoism and Buddhism, etc. If you don't really like the pithy sayings, well, think about it this way. If you are swimming in the ocean, what is the advice everybody gives you who's familiar with oceans? If you're swimming in the ocean and the tide begins to go out, what do you do? Do you swim against the tide, or do you swim with the tide? That's really the question you have to think, and that's exactly how we want to orient ourselves towards emotions. Now, the answer is you swim with the tide. So if you start getting pulled out, the thing that you don't want to do is look back to where your beach towel is and say, I got to get back there, and swim against the tide of the ocean. The ocean is too strong, and that's how people struggle, get water in their lungs, and eventually die due to sort of the power of the ocean. Instead, swim this way. And you might end up a mile away from where you wanted to get back to, but because you're gradually and slowly working with those powerful forces, you're actually going to be able to change the condition that you're in. So you accept that the tide is moving out, and then you change your orientation to how you're thinking about relating to the tide, and then you live and you survive. And that's exactly how it is with emotions, except it may not have as high stakes as death. But nonetheless, it does make life more smooth to go with that flow, to learn to just accept the emotions when they come and skillfully, masterfully work with them, much like a martial artist might work with somebody attacking them or in a fight. They work with the energies coming at them. They don't demand that the energies change, right? No, you can't fight that way. You have to fight this way. No good martial artist is going to do that. And we want to be the same skilled martial artists with our own emotional experiences. So summary, accepting is step one. We must first accept the emotions that we're having. Okay, this is anxiety. This is what it feels like. This is how I know it's anxiety. But then change is step two. Okay, what are we going to do with this energy? Let's read through some examples of how the first step and the second step sort of merge together here. So you get the signals of anxiety coming into your body, and you might relate to your anxiety in this way. Hello, old friend. How can I use this energy to change this feeling that I'm having? Remember, anxiety is usually involved in cortisol and adrenaline production. It's a hyper arousal of the nervous system, and it involves usually the amygdala saying like, warning, danger, right? So what do you do with that energy? Well, in healthy relationships to that side of the nervous system, what we would do is play, exercise, move, laugh, be physical. So get some physical energy moving. And that's one way that we can say, okay, I accept the anxiety's here or the panic is coming. How can I skillfully go with that flow? How can I go with the tide and turn it into something that's positive? Dance, laugh, play with somebody, take a run, take a walk, do some yoga, etc. We might say to ourselves when we're trying to accept and then change our relationship to anxiety, it is normal to feel anxiety, faster heart rate, or nervousness, but all emotions come and go, right? So reminding ourselves that it will go. And then you might say, okay, what's the next step I can do? What's the next best thing I can do for myself right now? Drink a little bit of water. Again, physically move, take a little bit of walk, do some dancing, punch a punching bag, etc. You might say, thank you for the danger signal, because that's what the anxiety is, right? Faulty or not, it might not be valid, but that's what the anxiety is. It's sort of a danger signal. But I can assure you that I am safe. Let's use this energy to dance instead, to punch a punching bag, to juggle, to rollerblade, to anything physical. Try to just move the physical body. And that's a way to use that danger signal that isn't denying it, shaming it, or trying to hide it away. And remember, resisting just makes the signal, the emotional signal, remember it's energy coming in the form of neurotransmitters, the emotional signal that's coming towards you, if you resist it, it's just going to get louder. It's going to have to sort of work its way around and say like, okay, they're not hearing me this way. How else can I get them to pay attention? And that's precisely what causes panic attacks to unfold the way that they do, is usually there's an element of, oh no, not now, this can't happen to me. Oh no, right? Like resisting is the first step in taking anxiety from just run-of-the-mill anxiety and driving it toward panic attack. So then the fundamental strategy to reverse that is to first accept the feeling of panic or the feeling of anxiety, name it in your body, get familiar with it. You can even give it a name. Like, oh, Vivian's here again. Vivian's always freaking out inside of me and trying to warn me about things. It's okay, Vivian. Everything's going to be fine. That's an example of how we can accept and then work with skillfully rather than resist or trying to shut down these strong feelings of anxiety. So if you're struggling with any anxiety, depression, or any mental health issues, and you could use a little bit of mentorship or community around those issues, consider joining the Home Mentorship Program. That's a program that I offer that goes through these 4 domains, as you can see here, as a way to make sure that we're not missing any critical bases in our own personal development and our own mental health sort of like mastery. The goal is mental health mastery and beyond, all the way into personal development, whatever that looks like for you. And I try to make it super affordable and accessible to everybody. So go ahead and click the link below if you're interested to learn a little bit more about our mentorship program. And here are some free ebooks that I wrote. One of these is how to get unstuck from anxiety forever. And there's just 4 simple steps on that. Please click the link below, a different link than the other one, to get these free ebooks. They'll both come straight to your email, and I hope that they serve you. That was The Power of Paradox to Master, Change, and Accept Anxiety, using sort of the ACT framework as one way to think about it, but in a more overarching way, really using the sort of skill sets that were born out of Buddhism, the skill sets that are born out of like accepting, life as it comes, being in the moment. This is not something we're trained in school. This is not something that we are really taught unless we study martial arts or meditation or do a lot of therapy. So it is a basic orientation toward life that will help you pretty much with everything that you do. Doesn't mean you can't set goals. It doesn't mean you can't achieve big things or have like important legacies that you're working toward. But it does mean that when things get in the way or things don't go as anticipated, that we're able to move through those in a way that doesn't resist it and ultimately make it worse. We don't want to take anxiety and turn it into panic, because panic is a more profound experience, a more awful experience to live with. Nor do we want to live in anxiety that's just perpetually moving all day, all night for months and months and months, or years and years and years. If that is something that you're experiencing, my heart really truly goes out to you. That typically means that there's some type of anxious attachment. You can check out my channel to learn more about anxious attachment, but that's usually why you may have had anxiety forever. If you're that type of person who's like, if I said to you, why are you anxious? And you said, I don't know, I'm always anxious. That's a good indicator that this is a more long-term, sort of deeper rooted origin of anxiety. And that's going to take a little bit more work than just accepting and changing. It's going to take a little bit of a deeper rewiring of the neural networks, and particularly of attachment styles. Keep an eye on this channel for more about attachment styles. We talk about that all the time. Thanks everybody for watching the video. I really appreciate your time, and I hope that you have a good day out there. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.